This session is going to be a candid conversation about something that we love and that we do, and we do it because we love it, right? Yes. If you're an educator, not for the money, but from the heart, raise your hand. If you love your students and want to make them do better, raise your hand. If you want to make administration understand some things, raise your hand. I am Angele K. Blackshear-Brown, and I'm here today to have the conversation with you about taking our college students and getting them ready to become professionals. I've had the opportunity to work with various institutions all over this country. Students who have gotten 2-year degrees, career college students, and even students that have gotten 4-year degrees. And one of the biggest things that employers tell me is that the student is great, they're credentialed, they have a great skill set, but we just can't hire them. And doing some deep thought about that, how is it that we get these students? We pour all of our time, we pour all of our knowledge into them, right? And they get out after they've spent alarming amounts of money and they can't pay back student loans. They're not proud about their degree. We want to have the conversation today that changes that. All right, so you all ready? I also want to dedicate this session to you, because without people such as yourself, see, this is what people don't understand. Everybody loves, we're in Music City, right? Are you guys enjoying Music City? I know I am. We're in Music City, and everybody wants to be a superstar. But something that people don't realize is you have to have a teacher. It starts with a teacher. Everyone from the President of the United States, the biggest superstar, an astronaut, they all started with a teacher. So let's give a round of applause to all the teachers today. So keep in mind throughout this session, when you are helping to transition your student from college to career, what approach, and this is a personal question that you can answer to yourself, what approach do you take? Are you more of a leader? Is that the approach that you take when you would be guiding or directing a student? Do you take a more educator stance? Or are you more like a coach? Each one of these roles helps to mold and change the student, but they do it in different ways. So just think about your particular style and how effective it is. Okay, so we're working with students, and this is the part where, now listen, you guys can participate, or I can come out there, and I'm not afraid to come out there in the audience and ask you to participate, because we're all going to be friends, okay? So assessing the student population, we know that when we go to send students out and when we are training students, the actual student population plays a big role. When I worked in rural schools, their needs were much different than the ones in the urban schools. And many times as administration, I would have to hire based on those needs. And if I had, let's say I had instructors or I had facilitators that maybe didn't understand the needs of an urban student or a rural student, then now we have to go in, and now it's a needs assessment, not just for the student, but also for the faculty and instruction. Anybody? So we have to, you have to be in touch with things such as what are the socioeconomic backgrounds of your students? What are the environmental factors? I worked at a school where literally before you went to work every day, you better watch the news. It was an urban school in downtown Cincinnati. And you better watch the news before you went to school. Because Sally or Dan may not be at school that day if someone got shot. So environmental factors play a large role in the success of our students. Motivational factors. Do any of you deal with issues of like retention? Okay. So motivational factors. Those things play a role in what you can even get the student to do, what they deem as important, right? And resources. Are we in areas that have good resources? Do our institutions provide sound resources for students? For instance, another rural school, they needed a computer lab that we were working with. They needed more technology. And they had increased their curriculum, but they hadn't increased their in-house technology. And then, so creating a gap and telling the student, well, you got to have this done. Well, you don't have a lab for them to go, you got to try to work with them and provide. So, okay, assessing the student population. Okay, so now we know we're getting students ready. I'm ready for you guys to talk to me, so let's see. I'll let you raise your hand. Can a couple of you tell me like what kind of programs you work with, what kind of degrees you teach in, and those type of things? Can anybody tell me? Yes.
I teach at a two-year private career-oriented college in California.
Okay, and what kind of
I teach business and gen ed.
Okay, thank you. Anybody? Yes.
I was going to say, I'm over our business programs at the college, and so that's management, accounting, and administrative office.
Okay, okay. Okay, good.
I teach at a four-year school, and we offer courses in our department, majors in computer science, information systems, information technology.
Mm-hmm.
I teach in I'm really the department chair in the faculty of business and computer information systems. But we also have, with the City Colleges of Chicago, we have a very powerful College to Careers program that we're working on with a very great new structure that is going up to house these new College to Career programs.
Great. Okay. So everyone in here, thank you all for sharing. Everyone in here, you all pretty much are really focused on, from what I'm hearing, getting a student in and getting them to almost even fast-track careers. Okay. So differences in industry. An industry selects the proper uniforms and business attire. I kind of think of when in Rome, act like the Romans. However, and here's what we want to look at. It says, but students may still need coaching in the following areas. Visible tattoos and body piercings. Now, I don't see your tattoos today and your body piercings. But for some reason, my students, I see them all the time, right? And Hair color. I'm graduating, so I need my hair blue. And that's what I have to have, right? Because I'm going to graduate, and my hair has to be blue. What casual work attire is. I didn't know that over the last 20 years, if you say casual Friday, depending on generations and depending on how long you've been working, that means that's different. And personal hygiene. I got stories to support all of these, but I think I'm gonna go with the personal hygiene story real quick. Yes. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And you know what? I'm so glad. Let's give her a round of applause for being. Let me tell you something. You were very brave to do that. I came in one day, and one of my faculty members, we had forms at the college that you could write up. They were called at-risk forms. And anything that a student may be at risk about, you write it up, and you give it to the chair or administration. And I come in and I have an at-risk form from one of my faculty members. She wrote up a young man because of his breath and his body odor. And she said it had persisted for 2 weeks. And she said, Mrs. Brown, I need you to come speak with this student because I think this is inappropriate in the classroom. He was also an IT student. What is the problem with that? What's the problem with that? I don't have a problem mentoring, coaching, working with a student. But if the instructor is in there with the student for 2 weeks, why didn't that instructor have the relationship or enough confidence to speak to the person themselves and help them? Because if you're in there to build lives, it's about more than the theory and the books sometimes. You have to sometimes say, hey, what's going on? And so I ended up the next day going and finding the young man. And here's what the story was. He said to me, he said, Mrs. Brown, he said, I know I haven't been that fresh. He said, the water is off in my house. I don't have any money. I haven't been able to wash my clothes. And I've been staying with a friend so that I could get to school every day and go home on the weekends. I don't have a job, and my mother is, his mother was handicapped. She was in a wheelchair. Now, had that instructor spoke with him, it wouldn't have been. You know what I mean? Our connections are everything with these students. Our connections are everything. Sometimes when they look at you, you're what they see. You may be the only positive light they have in their life. So we have to make sure that we take care of them. Sometimes you got to handle them with kid gloves, you know? So that's why I wanted to give you a round of applause, because you didn't push that up to administration. You handled it. And each one of us should be able to handle something like that. What I said to the student? You know what? Let me start with this. Your relationship with your students has to start way before a problem arises. You start building the bond day one. You start building the bond with them. How do you start building the bond with them? When they walk past in the morning, you say hello. If you see them in the restroom, hi, how is classes going? It starts with you. You bring the energy into the place. And the way I was able to speak to him was, I said, I have an at-risk form. I said, and I'm trying not to say his name for reasons, but I said, I have an at-risk form here. I said, and you know, it's saying this. I said, now is there something I can help you with to get us over this at-risk form? Because if it means that there's a school budget for, you know, if it means that I personally on my lunch go buy you a couple bars of soap, I'll do that if it'll stop us, something like that, you know. I did it like that, and the student instantly went in. But my relationships with those students started way before any problems. Okay. You guys still with me or you sleep? I want to know if this is really like class, so we're going to. Differences in culture. Whoa! Oh my gosh, or what do they say? OMG, right? Considering the following variables when working with college students to become professionals. Age. You have different ages of people in college now. You have different generations of people in college. I had 2 students one time, and one refused to wear stockings and closed-toe shoes to their interview. I said, that's not who, Ms. Brown, that's not who I am. I'm free. I said, you're going to be free and unemployed. You better put on some stockings and them closed-toe shoes so we can get you the job. And then after you get the job, then you be free. Race. Different cultures value different things and are taught different things within the cultural system. If you, like this young lady here that was just talking to me, depending on who you know, are teaching, become diverse in understanding that group and that population. The more diverse you'll be, with that population in your schools, the more effective you can be. Religion. We had a student that worked in one of the medical fields, but based on her religion, she had to remain covered. And it took a little extra work because some people, you know, would say, well, if you want this job, you'll uncover. But we just had to work with that student. And that's something you might run across. An orientation. So these are things that, you know, we have to consider when getting a person professional. Okay. Diversity of communication. I don't know about you, but has communication changed? Better yet, is common sense common anymore? I don't know. Maybe when I see you tomorrow night, I'll get back with you on that because I can't answer it right now. But communication with students, you know, when you're trying to make them professional, teaching them when to do what. For some reason, students write me letters in text language. And until maybe 2 years ago, I really only knew English. I didn't know text language. And they're writing these formal letters asking really serious stuff. Can I please get back into school? You know, can I graduate in text? I'm going to have a problem with you graduating writing in text. So we want to make sure that they understand how to properly use oral communication, when it's appropriate to make a phone call, when it's appropriate to leave a voicemail, when you have to do a face-to-face. It's just certain things that you cannot text. You have to call. You have to be face-to-face. Also, they need to know about written communication, letters and notes, and when you can use text, right? Okay. Any questions so far?
I was just going to say, I know we're in trouble with the student who calls and says, I need you to call me immediately, leaves no name, no phone number, and no message.
Mm-hmm.
And then wants to call your dean and say, she'll never call. I've called her a bunch of times and she won't call me back.
Uh-huh.
So then we know we got communication issues.
Uh-huh, exactly.
One of the things that I have made a habit of doing in the classroom, because we know that communication is a problem as we, deliver instructions to our students. So when my students speak to me not using correct language, their sentence structure is off, even though it takes away from class time, I do not allow them to get away with that. I'll stop them. What did you say? Would you repeat that? And I said this the very first day, very first week of class. I let them know that you are going to be corrected. It is not that I am embarrassing you, but I don't feel that I am providing a learning environment for you if I allow you to use incorrect language. Please do not send me a message texting. I do not understand it. So I kind of put some of those things up here up front.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm.
And so many other students just commented on that, and that was what ended up being our discussion versus what it was supposed to be. And I had the one student who was doing the abbreviations and everything call me and was just in tears. And I'm like, well, he's right. You are in the real world now. That's how it's done.
See, and that's great to me, because one thing I want us to do is change the mindset. Some of us teach math, and some people teach, in the health professions. Some people may teach psychology. But I want people to understand it's not about the subject that you teach. It's about that final product. It's about that final product. Why is it that if you're the math teacher, and they're speaking bad English, and you know that it's bad, you wouldn't say, listen, we need to work on that. Or can I send you to tutoring? Because it's about the final product. What we teach them is not going to be a hill of beans if they can't get employed. It does not mean anything. So what I want us to do today is change the mindset. We're not just educators or administrators, working with students. We're actually leaders and world changers, because the things we're doing today in the classroom, what we're actually doing is building the next generation of leaders and teachers and world changers, right? That's what we do. You should feel good about that. I feel good now. I'm sorry. You can join me on this train if you want to, but I feel good about it. And you feel really good when you started with a student that you know that just was not there, and at the end you see them and they're successful and they're able to make money for their family. They're able to come back and represent the college or the university in a good light.
Can I share a story?
Sure, please do.
A student that actually came, you talked about dealing with a hygiene problem. I had a student that came to class, maybe he had missed the first week of class. He came the second week, and I said, do you have your book? He says, no. I says, well, this class requires a book, and we've already started using it. It was a keyboarding class, we're still offering keyboarding. And he says, well, I don't have money. I said, well, you need a book. I said, new books in the bookstore are $100. I said, I have a student that's selling a used book for 40.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I really pushed him really to the end. I said, well, what do you have in your pocket? I said, I have this book. I said, but I can't give you the book without anything. I have a student looking to get money. So he dug in his pocket, and he says, well, I got this $20. You're going to take it? I said, yes. So I took the $20. I said, now the book is $40. Next week you'll be here. He says, yeah. He says, are you going to try to give me the $20? He says, yes. So Monday night that just passed, he came to class. He said, good evening. He said, good evening. I said, you have your book? He says, yes, I have the book you gave me. And he says, but I don't have any money. I said, so you don't have that $20 you owe me. So it goes back to what you said. I think at this point, because he felt comfortable talking to me, he felt comfortable saying, I don't work, I don't have any money. The student is looking for $20. I think the one thing I'm going to get from this is, if I have to give the other student that he sold the book to the $20, I am. Because he's trying. I thought, if he didn't come back to class today, then I would probably say, he probably doesn't care. He cares. I can see that it feels connected with me. If I have to, I'm just going to give him the $20. He doesn't have it, and I believe he's sincere. He doesn't have it. It's like we have to decide. Sometimes we do have to dig in our pocket if we really want to try to save the student. He said to me, how fast do you type? I said, about 70 words a minute. He says to me, well, I'm going to be a lawyer, and I'm going to hire you one day.
And when he hires you, make sure on your bonus right.
I was just going to suggest one of the things that I did for my class, because sometimes we have those types of issues, is that I take a textbook and I put it on reserve in the library, and so that students can't check out the book, but it's available to them, and that way other students as well.
And I was going to add to that. We have a tutorial learning center, and we do the same thing. We have copies of every textbook that we use that are housed in the tutorial learning center. So if they go to the learning center, where the tutors are, they've got a textbook. If they need to go over to the open computer lab, they've got a textbook.
Remember on that first slide, we talked about resources.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, ask the rep. Reach out to your rep.
I did,
I
and
love
she told me it was
that.
okay
When
to
you do that. I'm like, you let me know. Sometimes I do have to provide permissions that it will not be sold, it will not leave the library, because some libraries are very particular.
Yeah.
So reach out to your reps.
Okay,
We
we'll
want
do.
to be a resource for you.
Thank
And
you.
It's good to know for the students.
If I could piggyback on that, one of the issues we have on campus, and many of you may have the same situation, your vets and the GI Bill, sometimes it's a timing issue for getting the funding. Well, there's an organization in our community that has donated a pool of money, kind of on loan, where they work with our vet representative on campus, have them be able to purchase the book, and then the money would be refunded into the school. So there's some other options that you can reach out, because it's not only what we perceive the younger students that are not working. Sometimes it's a timing issue with their vets as well.
And these are great suggestions. And, keeping in mind with the theme of taking students and transitioning them to professionals, this is teaching some of those life learning skills, right? Of you don't just quit, you don't just give up, you make a way. And it's teaching some thought processes that they may have not known. Yes, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to get back to the dress situation. Our school recently, I think it's in like its third year, we started doing business attire Wednesday.
Okay.
So they come every Wednesday. Well, not everybody. They come on Wednesdays dressed up so that we can, we have an idea of what they have, and well, that's not going to work. This will work, and just kind of getting them used to that before they actually get out there. Like I said, we're just kind of starting But this, of course, helps to get them ready. When we do have people coming, professionals coming from the outside to do interviews and whatnot, they know how to conduct themselves dress-wise.
That's good. That's good. Let's move on to the technology. We are at the course technology conference. Right? Okay. Other diverse methods of communication are great for students, but can be utilized in the wrong way. So we want to use these methods and maintain the professionalism and integrity of the method. So I had to put Facebook on here because I just wanted to humor myself. I thought at this point in the presentation, I may need a laugh because you may have thrown tomatoes at me. I didn't know. So I put Facebook on here. And the reason I put Facebook on here is because I've had recently maybe 10 students not get a job because of what they do on Facebook. And everybody, let me tell you something. It's not because Mrs. Brown did not tell them. Now, what I recommend when students are getting ready to graduate is that I recommend that they get 2 Facebook pages. They can have their professional one should be their real name and professional and nice and put up the family pictures and everything else. And then they can have their crazy one under a different alias. Because the people who are going to hire them wouldn't know that alias. But when you put crazy pictures on your real Facebook page and you have bottles of alcohol and various other things, what can we do?
I have a friend who is a lawyer, and one entire side of his business is nothing more than legal staff searching the internet, searching Facebook, and they dig for those alternate pages. And that is where their companies are getting their reference material from. They hire a lawyer firm to go do it.
You know, they use it. That's great. I know that they do that. I know they use it for students to find them for bills and things. They use social media for everything. And once you're out there, you can't get off. So we might as well be responsible. Twitter, email, Instagram. Twitter and Instagram is actually worse than Facebook in this case. It's actually worse because for some reason students will put things on Twitter, that I'm speaking my mind. What if the employer does not agree with your mind? What if you offend people? It's just food for thought.
Yes, well, I try to stress my students to always to make sure that they Google themselves, because I know that's not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
To check out, and you can actually set up in Google where alerts that have your name in it come back to you over time. So like once a month, it will send you something and say, this is what's out about you. And I always have to do it. And I used to do it in class.
Okay.
And I have them Google themselves until some of the police bloggers came up on their screen.
Okay, let's go into looking at teaching effective transitioning. So in the beginning, we looked at a slide that said leader, educator, coach. And you all picked out like one that you might be, or maybe a hybrid. 5 areas that must be addressed to successfully transition students from college to career. Self-image and perception. Students get to the end and don't really see themselves as changed. They don't see themselves as a professional. Emotional management. Students get to the end and get scared. And sometimes, have any of you ever had students sabotage their professionalism because they're scared? The classrooms we run, the colleges that we have, are safe havens for students. They're there 2 years, 4 years, sometimes more. Think about being somewhere safe where you know everything, and all of a sudden one day they just say you're kicked out. You got to leave. So we got to look at the emotional management piece. Enrichment exercises. Something that's good when students are getting ready to transition are things such as, and this may sound crazy to you, spelling tests and math tests. Things that will sharpen their skills that maybe they haven't done for those years. Just a little bit of sharpening. Team building. I can't stress team building enough because I have students that either love teams or they hate teams. And the ones that hate teams, when I say, listen, we work in teams. Most of American workers work on a team. Oh, I'm not working on a team, I'm going to work by myself. So we need everybody to understand, about teams. And then goal setting. Some of our students maybe come from places or families where they were not taught goals. And they may not understand that you have to set a goal. They may not understand that you don't go from A to Z. You might have to step through. So we want to teach them goal setting. A great textbook that, a textbook that I got to work on was this textbook, Your Career. Get with your Cengage rep, check it out. It's a pretty good book for students. I think it reads well, and the information in it is relevant to today's student as far as transitioning from a student to a professional. Okay, so the professional classroom kind of, to me, deals with what the student has to build upon in order to really start to successfully transition. And, it's going to be based on these 3 things. You have your education in theory at the bottom, so they've learned all these different subjects. But then you have to have that professional resume, you have to have professional mentorship, and you need professional networking opportunities. And I think if students start working on these things a year, I would say as early as a year before graduating, then when they go to graduate, they will have some prospects of a job if they work on these things about a year before. The daily encounter of professional mentorship that students are exposed to comes from the professional staff. This includes everybody on your campus. Okay, and we always want to work to provide students with a solid transition of success in the workplace. Let me tell you the 2 worst things you can have, in a college. Faculty or staff that don't consider themselves professional, and faculty or staff that have lost their feeling for the student. If I have a person like that, they need to go. Because you have to have feeling for these students in order to get them together. If you're coming in and mostly just concerned about yourself, you're not going to be effective. And if you're not professional, in other words, not teaching the student, not showing the student professionalism, then we've already failed the student. Someone had their hand up. Yes. remember on the other slide where it says self-image? Sometimes when they go to interview, they feel like, you know, they feel like that person that they're interviewing with is so high above them that, you know, it doesn't matter what questions they have. It doesn't matter what they think. But what we have to do is instill in the student that they have a stake in this world too. They have a voice, they have a story, it's worth being heard. You just have to say it properly, right? So, you know, I totally agree with you. Okay, you spoke about the resume. College students' first professional resume. Chronological order. You know, we always have this kind of argument about objective statements. Are you guys having your students do those or not? Okay. Okay.
We were very excited a number of years ago when we went to an email system that allowed us to grant students college emails forever. After they're gone, they still have that college email that is that more professional, and we encourage them to use that versus the student that had a hot pants 69 email.com. So, yeah.
Stating the attempted degree. Utilizing catchwords or phrases. You all know with the scanner technology now, they're looking for those words, catchwords, and phrases. List of awards and volunteer experiences. Note to self, if your student comes to you and says, I don't have awards or volunteer experiences, find them some. Find them something to do. You can send them to the United Way. You can send them to the local food pantry, but they need something in that area. Making electronic copies and printed copies, you know, and make sure they know that they should carry it with them. They never know when they're going to get an opportunity to submit a resume to someone. No more than 2 pages. You had your hand up first. And then.
Most of our programs in our college have a computer course or have Word and Excel, at least Word and Excel embedded in one of the courses, whether it's medical, construction management, IT, or business. And so what we have done as one of the assessments in each of those courses is they have to create the resume. And it may start just being a shell, particularly if they're new in education and you're new in the workplace, if at all. But what it does is it gives them a foundation with which to build. So by the time they're ready to look at doing interviewing and mock interviews, that they have a resume that they can build on, rather than waiting to 3 months before they're graduating. Oh my gosh, I need a resume. So we have found that to be more successful for those students.
Good job.
I teach a capstone class in our department, and what we do in there is a real-world experience of going out and working with end users and seeing what their needs are and developing some type of a project for them. And I've taught it for like 15 years, and what I have them do is we only work with nonprofit organizations so that they have volunteer experience in their resumes because they have to do it in class.
Thank you. Okay, professional networking. Professional networking. Is it really still true that it's not what you know, but it's who you know? I think that's always going to be true. And, you know, something that helps with the networking. Now, how many of you are on LinkedIn? How many of you have taken the time to get your students on LinkedIn? I find it to be an extremely effective exercise to have your students get on LinkedIn. And you may say, Ms. Brown, why would you put your students on LinkedIn? Well, one, it kind of combats the problem we talked about earlier with Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Because on LinkedIn, it's pretty much a professional environment. And it shows them how to responsibly use social media in a professional manner. Also with LinkedIn, they can link to various people all around the world. You know, they can get job postings. It's just good and it's free. So for the student that says, I don't have any money for this, I can't do, LinkedIn is free. Organizations such as trade organizations, business organizations, industry, and social organizations, many times they cost, but if they get in as a student, there's usually a student rate. Such organizations such as IEEE or the BPA, those are organizations that are student focused, and they cost maybe a little bit of money. They may cost $15 or $30 a year. Now, when you buy professional membership to some of those organizations, you're looking at maybe $100 or $200. So if they get in as a student, it's a little bit better deal. And then again, community service and volunteer opportunities. I've seen people start out as volunteers and the company will make a position for them just because they volunteered. So it's always good. It's always good to do community service and volunteer and to teach our students how to give back to others. Oh my gosh, I never thought I'd see this slide. It's called conclusion. Wow. In conclusion, integrating these techniques into the student experience will create self-assured graduates that can transition from college to career. Thank you all very much. Please enjoy the rest of your conference.